budget briefing of the Office of the Vice President to the Senate Committee on Finance. Good morning to our Honorable Vice President, Ma'am Sara Duterte. Good morning, ma'am. And to your team, we'll acknowledge them individually at the proper time. I'd just like to acknowledge initially our committee vice chairs, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, Vice Chair, and Vice Chair Senator Bongo. Good morning, Your Honors. We'd like to acknowledge also Chief of Staff, Attorney Zulaika Lopez, Assistant Chief of Staff, Lemuel Ortonio, Director for Admin and Financial Services, Rosalyn Sanchez, Director for Operations, Norman Baloro, Attorney Reynold Monsayak, Spokesperson, Attorney Emily Rose Torrentira, Legal Affairs Head, Chief Budget Division, Kelvin Jerome Tenido, Aymar Eje, Head of Disaster Operations, sir. Julieta Villa del Rey, Chief Accountant, Sara Atienza, OIC, Human Resource Management Division, Caroline Lourdes Mangalili, Chief Planning Division, Nicole Erica Cue, Executive Assistant 4. For the Commission Audit, we have State Auditor De Vera, State Auditor Marvin Palitic. For DBM, we have John Ray Castillo, Chief Budget and Management Specialist, and Joyce Akad, OIC of the Chief Budget Management Specialist. Did I miss anyone, Comsec?
Just the Chief Accountant.
I'd like to acknowledge our Vice Chair. I just saw her here. Good morning, our Senior Vice Chair, Amy Marcos. Good morning, ma'am.
Miss Julieta Villa del Rey, the Chief Accountant.
Okay.
That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Comsec. We'll turn it over now if there are no statements from our colleagues initially. No? We'll turn it over now to the Vice President. We know how important... we'd like to acknowledge Senator Risa Ontiveros, also a Committee Vice Chair. Good morning, ma'am. So if there are no opening statements, we'll turn it over to the Vice President. Ma'am, good morning po. Thank you for attending this briefing.
Thank you, Honorable Angara. Honorable Juan Miguel Zubiri, Senate President, the Honorable Chairperson and members of the Committee on Finance, other honorable members of the Senate, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum, madayaw, ugmayong adlaw kaninyong tanan. Magandang araw sa inyo lahat. Allow me to thank you for the budget allocated to the Office of the Vice President for this year, which allowed our office to expand and reach unserved and underserved areas in the country. I likewise thank the Senate for supporting the plans, programs, and advocacies of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. through cooperation. We place the people's welfare at the forefront of our national interests. Before we brief the committee, let me introduce the OVP delegation, which was mentioned earlier by Senator Sani Angara, so I will not repeat the names. The OVP holds a distinct position in our bureaucracy. As the second highest office in the land, the OVP carries out functions that complement the work of other government agencies while advancing the well-being of the Filipino people. With a mission to deliver efficient, accessible, and responsive public services, our work resonates at the core of our nation's welfare and progress. We are here to propose our budget request of 2.385 billion to support our operations, continue our programs, and extend the reach of OVP services throughout the country. We have prepared an audiovisual presentation to provide more details on our plans and programs for fiscal year 2024 and our accomplishments for the past year. May I request the Secretariat to present our AVP? Shukran.
Right after her assumption to office, Vice President Sara Duterte initiated the establishment of satellite offices in strategic areas around the country. The decision was guided by the vision of the Office of the Vice President to reach, serve, and create a lasting impact on the lives of Filipinos. The satellite offices were established for OVP services to become accessible to Filipinos outside the National Capital Region. Starting July 2022, the OVP satellite offices in Bacolod, Cebu, Dagupan, Davao, Surigao, Tacloban, and Zamboanga opened their doors to the public. This year, the satellite offices in Isabela, Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, and Region 5 were also opened. 2 extension offices of the Public Assistance Division of OVP were also opened in Lipa, Batangas, and Tondo, Manila. The 10 satellite offices and 2 extension offices complement the functions of the central office in Robinson Cybergate Plaza in Mandaluyong. 2 of the services mainly accessed by the public are the Medical Assistance Program and Burial Assistance Program. Funds used to implement these programs were covered by the total allotment released in 2022 for the OVP, amounting to 973.21 million pesos, of which 898.47 million pesos had been obligated, with a registered 97% disbursement rate. It also covered the establishment and operations of the satellite offices and extension offices. For fiscal year 2023, the OVP has a 2.36 billion peso available budget under the General Appropriations Act. As of June 30, 2023, the OVP has already obligated 44% of the allotment received, or equivalent to 1.06 billion pesos, and with a disbursement rate of 81%, or 864.98 million pesos. For the Medical Assistance Program alone, from January 2023 to July 2023, the OVP has assisted 52,472 beneficiaries, spending 550,781,339.98 pesos. The Burial Assistance Program also assisted 11,606 beneficiaries, spending 56,955,000 pesos. The other OVP initiatives are the following. The Magnegosyo Taday hopes to help grassroots level groups shore up their livelihood projects. A fund amounting to 150,000 pesos will each be given to qualified organizations. They will also undergo technical and financial management training to ensure the success of their projects. 3 organizations with over 100 members have so far qualified to become recipients of the Magnegosyo Taday funds. The OVP is evaluating more than 200 Magnegosyo Taday applicants. In May this year, OVP launched the Pagbabago, A Million Learners and Trees campaign. It is a 3-pronged initiative that underscores the value of education, oral health, and the protection of the environment. From May to July, the OVP distributed 11,108 bags. But even before the campaign was officially launched, Vice President Sara Duterte had already given away 8,640 Pagbabago bags to young learners during her provincial visits. In total, 19,212 bags were distributed to learners as of July 31, 2023. By the end of 2023, the OVP will be able to distribute 180,788 bags to learners nationwide. Meanwhile, through the satellite offices and partners from the government, communities, and private sector, the OVP has so far planted 34,137 trees in various parts of the country since January 2023. The You Can Be VP program offers a unique experience to the selected participants, an opportunity to join the VP on her official foreign trips as part of the delegation and observe the VP's engagements and activities. Here are the other programs and projects of the OVP. The Libreng Sakay program initially started with 1 bus, each deployed in the cities of Bacolod, Cebu, Davao, and 2 buses in Metro Manila. With increasing public demand for additional free transport services in Metro Manila, the OVP deployed 2 more buses for the new Commonwealth Quiapo route in March. This year, with 7 buses, the OVP Libreng Sakay program has served more than 353,700 Filipinos. The Disaster Operations Center complements the emergency response of LGUs and government agencies expert in disasters. It has so far conducted a total of 78 relief operations all over the country and served 62,308 beneficiary families, with 103,857 relief goods distributed. The OVP's relief for individuals in crisis and emergency bags complement the assistance being given by the Disaster Operations Center. These are given to people in crises. The Kalusugan food trucks are equipped with kitchens designed to prepare hot meals for responders and volunteers during disasters and calamities. These trucks are also used to distribute the funds to the beneficiaries of the Pansarap project. The Pansarap project is a food supplementation project that addresses malnutrition in school children nationwide. It was first implemented in Tamugan Elementary School in Davao City and Nuro Central Elementary School in the town of Upi in Maguindanao. For 120 days, undernourished learners were given Pansarap buns packed with vitamins and other minerals essential to the growth and development of children. 69,635 Pansarap buns were given to 733 malnourished children in Davao's Tumugan Elementary School for 95 days. In Maguindanao's Nuro Central Elementary School, 47,880 Pansarap buns were given to 1,064 malnourished learners for 45 days. Early assessment of the impact of this intervention showed remarkable improvements in the weight of the beneficiaries even before the completion of the 120-day implementation period. Pansarap will also be implemented in 20 other schools nationwide with the highest incidence of malnutrition. Inextricably ingrained in the OVP initiatives are the aspirations for the empowerment of communities, the promotion of education and patriotism, and the advancement of a peaceful, secure, and stable life for Filipinos. Vice President Sara Duterte's provincial consultations with various sectors fundamentally bring to light problems such as insurgency, terrorism, illegal drugs, and other factors that invariably contribute to the worsening condition of poverty, injustice, and security. These local engagements open doors for security assessment, confidence building, and active community participation, eventually setting the ground for strategic formulation of programs and their successful implementation down to the grassroots level. Since January this year, the Vice President has had 245 events and meetings. 40 of these were diplomatic engagements with foreign envoys and dignitaries, where the Vice President promoted goodwill, explored more opportunities for cooperation, and strengthened existing bilateral relations. It also covered her official trips to the Kingdom of Brunei Darussalam and Singapore in June as the new president of the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization Council. The rest of the engagements were undertaken with various community groups, local government officials, security sector, and school personnel. Meanwhile, the OVP envisions having a permanent office to memorialize the legacy of the OVP and the past vice presidents of the Philippines. Groundworks have started to make this happen. For 2024, the recommended budget for OVP is 2.385 billion pesos, a 1.22% increase compared to the current year appropriation, amounting to 2.356 billion pesos. This proposal, once approved, will enable the OVP to continue the operations of the satellite offices and extension offices. It will also ensure the success of the expanded OVP social services. This is the Office of the Vice President, committed to deliver efficient, accessible, and responsive public services and programs for the good of all Filipinos.
Ma'am, go ahead, please, if you want to add to your presentation.
Yes, that is all, Your Honor, and we are ready to accept questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. We'll now turn it over to our colleagues in the order of seniority. Our Senior Vice Chair, Senator Amy, if she has any questions. We have 10 minutes for the questions per member. And given that we have a DepEd, the chair will be a little stricter than usual with the 10 minutes. Usually
Can
very
we start with the OVP or the DepEd, please?
OVP, ma'am.
OVP muna.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, and we welcome to the Senate all our friends from the OVP, most of all, Her Honor, the Vice President. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to the COA citations. Firstly, the COA has repeatedly cited the lack of internal guidelines, hence the delayed submission of in-kind donations, the non-posting of reports, and the late reporting and lack of supervision in the in-kind donations at OVP satellite offices. Has this been responded to adequately, and has the COA deleted this finding in the latest report?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, Director Sanchez of Administrative and Financial Services will answer the question.
Thank you, Director Sanchez. Yes, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. The OVP has already prepared a draft guidelines for the monitoring of and reporting of in-kind donations, Your Honor, and we expect to release it within this quarter, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you very much. So there is also the other end of that, which is the citation also by COA of the inadequate guidelines for distribution and the supporting documents for welfare goods and other supplies. Have you responded to that also? What are the existing guidelines? What documentation is required, in fact? And given the said lack of internal processes, can you please explain why there was a failure to report? I mean, clearly this is a new office and you are self-inventing along the way. Have you responded to COA?
Yes, Your Honor, we've already responded to the Commission on Audit on that matter. As a matter of fact, we already developed swim lanes for the reporting of distribution of welfare goods to ensure that we are able to comply with the reporting requirements of the Commission on Audit. We've also developed the guidelines for that, Your Honor.
So has the COA agreed, or you're yet to meet on the draft?
We are yet to meet on the draft, Your Honor.
All right, just update us as we go along the budget process, because that remains in the books together with a very, very old issue. And this has been carried over from the Commission on Higher Education, an existing fund transfer of 4 million. Apakatagal na nito, more than 10 years unliquidated. Ano ba ito?
Your Honor, that pertains to fund transfer to the Commission on Higher Education in the previous administration, several years already, Your Honor.
Yes,
And
this is unliquidated for more than 10 years,
Yes, Your Honor.
casting doubt on whether the project was actually implemented at all.
Yes, Your Honor. We continue to send follow-up letters to the Commission on Higher Education as to the status of the fund transfer, Your Honor. And we are continuously coordinating with the CHED on this matter.
Yes, may we have a copy of the trail of communication to the CHED so that we can inquire with CHED as well if there's any update on this matter. Finally, of course, what occurred in the news, I know that the Vice President has responded to this, but is there any further explanation on the controversial 400 security detail to the OVP?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, the question will be answered by Assistant Secretary Antonio.
Yes, Asek Ortonio, please.
I'm sorry. May we request that the question be repeated?
Oh, yes. So sorry. I know that the Vice President has responded regarding this matter in past fora, but I'd just like to put it on record. The explanation regarding the controversial 400 plus security detail to the OVP.
Good morning, Your Honor. So yes, we do confirm that there is an existing 433 VPSPG personnel as of December 2022. And as mentioned, this has been created way back in June 2022 and took effect on June 30, 2022 to provide security services for the Office of the Vice President. And the creation of the VPSPG is really for the protection of the future, current and future vice presidents.
Yes, I think there were comments about the inordinate number of security already established. Is there an explanation for such a large number, as has been criticized in both the media as well as Congress?
As to the number of VPSPG personnel, no, the determination on the number and deployment of VPSPG personnel is largely dependent on the assessment of the AFP and the PNP.
Okay, so that's the reply to that. It's actually the AFP that has recommended that, being that the vice president is clearly in all these target lists and is always under threat. Thank you very much. That will be all, Mr. Chairman. I have no further questions. I think
Thank
they've been
you.
adequately responded to.
Thank you very much, Senior Vice Chair. And I suspect, kasi ako, my security, let's say we have 6 or 4, hindi naman sila sabay-sabay, di ba? Kasi may nagpapahinga, may shifting yun, di ba? Hindi naman kailangan alert yun, di ba? There's a day shift, there's a night shift. Tapos kung pupunta si VP sa isang lugar out of town, mauuna yun, di ba? May advance party yun. So I just want to put that on the record because the impression created in the public might be na sabay-sabay nagjo-duty lahat yan. Hindi. Which is not the case for many of us in public service. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct, and we confirm that. Are they also, some of them at least, assigned to the 10 satellite offices now? Or are they all personal?
The VPSPG personnel consists of admin personnel. They are holding their office at the headquarters, and some of them are also doing some security and surveillance works in the different satellite offices as well.
Yes, kasi 10 na yan ngayon, di ba? Pakarami na. Thank you very much, yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for those questions, Senior Vice Chair Marcos. Next is our Vice Chair Sherwin Gatchalian. Vice Chair Win, you have 10 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman. So, Chairman, I just have a few questions, and I just saw here in the report and also in the presentation about the Libreng Sakay program, no? And I just want to understand. I know that the OTR also has a point-to-point system or point-to-point program. How is this different, and how is it being synchronized with the DOTR point-to-point program? I know that the national government is also funding that point-to-point program. So I just want to understand how these two programs are working together.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, Ms. Baloro, the Director for Operations, will answer the question.
Good morning, Your Honor. The Libreng Sakay program provides augmentation to the transportation industry through the partnership with the private bus companies and owners. So we are providing reinforcement during peak hours to the Filipinos who rely on the public transportation for their daily commuters. So we've seen it as a very important programs or flagship of the Office of the Vice President, especially for those who are commuting every day to their works and offices, Your Honor.
How do you identify the routes? How do you work with the DOTR? Because I know they have that program. In fact, that it's always a program that national government funds. So how do you work with the OTR? Is there
Before you answer, Madam Vice President, I just want to acknowledge the presence of our Senate Chairperson of the Committee on Public Works, Senator Bong Revilla. Morning, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Undersecretary Lopez will answer the question.
Yes, thank you, Vice President. Your Honor, the Office of the Vice President has a existing memorandum of agreement with the Department of Transportation on this matter, on the project of the Libreng Sakay program. What happens is that it is the OVP who supports the program, the Libreng Sakay program also of the DOTR by providing buses. No, but the determination of the routing, when is it, what are the routes for pickup, etc., will be solely on the part of the Department of Transportation, Your Honor. It is a means of support and an augmentation of the national program for Libreng Sakay of the DOTR.
So it's an augmentation of the DOTR program.
In
That's
a way,
how it
yes,
works.
but it is a Office of the Vice President program.
Okay, and because I know that the OTR, they have specified routes, especially those that are traversing, for example, the MRT routes or the LRT routes.
That is
And because of congestion, they augment it through a point-to-point system. No? Is it the same? Is it the same program?
That is correct, Your Honor. As a matter of fact, when one way also to when we say what we meant by augmentation is also the DOTR does not have a route for the Commonwealth and Quiapo Loton area. So that's one way. We also fielded two Libreng Sakay buses of the Office of the Vice President in said areas, Your Honor, giving public commuters an opportunity also to avail of said program.
And then how is it? How is the program being affected by the increase in fuel? Right now, we just saw another round of fuel increase last week. So how is it being affected? I understand that you have serviced close to about 353,000 passengers.
Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kelvin Tenido, our budget officer, will answer the question.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Part of the indicative budget for 2024 is the projection for the fuel, including the expected hike of the fuel price.
Can we still maintain the number of passengers of 353,000? That's still possible with the price increase?
Mr. Chair, I think the number of passengers would be the same since we have one operations expenses for the Libreng Sakay. I think regardless of the fuel level, the capacity of the bus would still be the same, Mr. Chair.
Assuming that because prices of fuel will increase, the number of trips will go down. And therefore, the number of passengers will also go down. That's my assumption.
Okay, yes, sir. To answer that, Mr. Chair, our indicative budget for 2024 was based on the actual routes or actual trips made by the existing buses po.
And then you took into consideration already the fuel increase?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And then lastly, I saw in the presentation also an office. I think that was a discussion last budget hearing. What's the plan of putting up a permanent office? And I think the OVP deserves a permanent office. No? Just like the Senate, we don't have a permanent office. We're just leasing here. I think the position of Vice President will not disappear forever. So I think it's just right and proper to have a permanent office. Is there any plans in the pipeline to come up with a permanent office for the present team and also for future vice presidents?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, Yusek Lopez will answer the question.
Yes, thank you, Vice President. Yes, Your Honor, there is a plan. We are still under negotiations for land acquisition for the construction of our OVP permanent office.
Be funded in 2024 or still, it's still in the pipeline?
It's still in the pipeline, Your Honor, because we are currently, it's still undergoing negotiations as to the matter of land acquisition. We are considering sites
All right.
for the said OVP building.
But definitely that's in the works already.
Yes, Your Honor, it is a planned project for the term of the Vice President.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Senator Win Gatchalian. Next is Vice Chair Senator Bongo. Sir, you have 10 minutes.
Mr. Chair, just a quick manifestation to Madam Vice President Sara Duterte, OVP officials, my fellow colleagues, and everyone present with us here today. Magandang araw po. I will not be interposing any questions. I just want to express my support for the budget of the Office of the Vice President. Mr. President, as we all know, the OVP, in addition to its executive and ceremonial functions as the second highest office of the Philippine government, advocates for and puts into action initiatives tailored to address the needs of the Filipino people. Sa pamamagitan ng opisina ni Vice President Sara Duterte, iba't ibang pampublikong serbisyo ang kanyang nagagawa at patuloy na ginagawa para sa Pilipino. That is why I support the bulk of the OVP's budget will be for funding these programs. Isa na po ito yung mga medical and burial assistance which supplements other healthcare programs of the government to assist indigent individuals and families. Simula pa nung kanyang termino, malaki po ang aking tiwala kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Alam kong patuloy na magbibigay tulong ang kanyang mga programa para sa ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na po yung mga mahihirap. Again, I would like to reiterate my full support for the budget of the Office of the Vice President. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Senator Bongo. I'm sure the VP and the office appreciate your support very much. Next is our Vice Chair and Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros. Ma'am, you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Salamat, Mr. Chair. Maayong buntag, Madam Vice President. Madam Vice President, during the 6 years of your term, ano yung ipopursue nyo na primary mandates ng inyong opisina?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, Yusek Lopez will answer the question.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice President, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Tungkol po, sorry, Chief of Staff. Mr. Chair, it's a general question kung anong primary mandates ang ipopursue ni VP during the 6 years of her term. So kung maaari po si VP ang sumagot.
Yes,
Mr.
okay.
Chair.
Yes,
Salamat tayo.
Yes, there will be only two permanent projects that we will leave in the Office of the Vice President. One is the permanent office and residence of the future Vice Presidents. The second is the Vice President's Museum. And yes, that's two. And then the third is the Omnibus Law about the charter of the Office of the Vice President. So that's three.
Salamat kaayo, Madam VP. But I was asking po about primary mandates of your office. Ito po, I understand 2 or 3 permanent projects, yung permanent office, yung VP's Museum, saka yung omnibus law or charter governing the Office of the Vice President. Pero in terms of your office itself, ano yung primary mandates that you will seek to achieve as the Vice President, Mr. Chair?
The strategic direction is to institutionalize and implement socioeconomic services and key programs towards nation building in support of the 8-point socioeconomic agenda of the Office of the President and his direction and mandate of Bagong Pilipinas.
Her permission,
Yes,
Your
of
Honors. Of course, she's also the concurrent Secretary of the Department of Education, which, as we all know, is one of the toughest portfolios to hold in government.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sigurado, it's one of the toughest portfolios to hold in government, pero nakikita ko po concurrent yon sa pagiging VP. So, hiwalay pa po yung primary mandates ng DepEd, which I'll ask in the other hearing later, but may iba pa pong primary mandates yung Office of the Vice President. So, at least initially, nakikita ko yung primary mandates ng office nyo in support of the mandates and the programs of the Office of the President. I hope, Mr. Chair, dahil pangalawang taon na ito ng panunungkulan ni VP, at least in the next budget hearings, we can hear more specific and distinct mandates of the OVP kaysa lamang in support of yung mandates ng OP. Ngayon naman po, Madam VP, Mr. Chair, the Office of the Vice President has been allocated confidential funds amounting to 500 million pesos. According to Joint Circular Number 2015-01 issued by the COA, DBM, DILG, CGC, GCG, and DND, confidential funds refer to those expenses related to surveillance activities in civilian government agencies that are intended to support the mandate or operations of that agency. So, una pong tanong dito, Madam Vice President, which mandates of the Office of the Vice President will be supported by the aforementioned allocation of the confidential funds, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, all of the projects of the Office of the Vice President use the confidential funds that is intended for the safe, secure, and successful implementations of programs, projects, and activities and engagements of me and all the satellite offices, including the central office of the Office of the Vice President.
Salamat kayo, Madam VP. Kanina po sabi nyo yung primary mandates ng office nyo in the next 6 years would be in support of the primary mandates of the OP. So, alin po sa mga primary mandates na yon, as you conceive them in support of the primary mandates of the OP, alin sa mga primary mandates na yon ang masusuportahan or specifically gagastusan ng confidential funds na i-allocate ng Kongreso sa office nyo?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, the constitutional mandate of the Office of the Vice President is only to be a reserve, a bench warmer, in the event of, I do not want to mention it, but in the event that the President cannot discharge his functions, that is the constitutional mandate of the Office of the Vice President. Apart from that, all the other projects of the Office of the Programs, Projects, and Activities of the Office of the Vice President will depend largely on the decision and discretion of the incumbent elected Vice President. So for my term, we decided on 3 permanent projects: the charter, the museum, and the permanent office and residence of the Office of the Vice President. And then we took on the projects that made the most impact when I was mayor of Davao City. These are the entrepreneurship program, the peace building in communities, the Pagbabago advocacy campaign. We added the Pagbabago A Million Trees for in support of the mandate of the DNR. And then we have the Pansarap program in support of the Department of Health and the Department of Education. And then we created the Disaster Operations Center in support of NDRIMC and all those local governments who are asking for help from the Office of the Vice President when there are calamities or emergencies in their localities. And the buses donated to me, I lent to the Office of the Vice President to support the Libreng Sakay program of the national government. In addition to that, I discharge the functions and the duties of the Secretary of the Department of Education. And in addition to that, I was tasked by the President to co-chair the National Task Force on Ending Local Communist NTF-LCAC. And in addition to that, I also took on the role of President of the Southeast Asian Education Ministers Organization, SIMEO. And all of these activities use confidential funds.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice President, so nasagot nyo na yung follow-up question ko. Kung ibig nyo pong sabihin, lahat nito, starting with the bench warming and being a reserve, and then yung entrepreneurship program, yung peace building, yung Pansarap, yung Million Trees, yung Pagbabago Advocacy, yung Disaster Operations Center, yung Libreng Sakay, and yung binanggit nyong three permanent projects, the permanent office, the VP's Museum, and the Omnibus Law or Charter. Bawat isa sa mga ito gagastusan ng confidential funds ng opisina nyo?
Yes. Mainly, the confidential funds, as I said, is for the safe, secure, and successful implementations of the programs, projects, and activities and engagements of the Office of the Vice President.
Salamat.
With your
Yes, Mr.
permission,
Chair.
Your Honors, I just want to acknowledge, might forget, the presence of our minority leader, Senator Coco Pimentel, and one of our committee vice chair, Senator Francis Tolentino. Morning, Your Honors. Go ahead, thank you.
Sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. In addition, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, in addition, there are times when the president is on official trips, travel abroad. I chair the executive committee, which is the caretaker of the Office of the Vice President. This is an additional dagdag trabaho sa lahat ng mga trabaho na mention ko po.
Of course, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice President, yung ibang items na binanggit ni Madam VP na gagastusan di umano ng confidential funds, specifically ng OVP, tulad ng sa DepEd, sa NTF-LCAC, sa CIMEO, pati yung Executive Committee pag wala si Presidente, malamang sa hindi, may sariling confidential funds na hindi na ginagastusan ng confidential funds na hinihingi ng Office of the Vice President. So, Madam Chair, VP, Mr. Chair, furthermore, the joint circular I cited provides that confidential funds can only be used for a limited range of purposes, such as the rental of transport activities related to confidential activities. So in broad terms po, saang mga activities na enumerated sa joint circular gagamitin yung confidential funds? Just to refresh our memory, dun po sa 2015 joint resolution na yon, confidential funds can only be used for the following expenses: purchase of information necessary for the formulation and implementation of programs, activities, and projects relevant to national security and peace and order, rental of transport vehicles related to confidential activities, rentals and the incidental expenses related to the maintenance of safe houses, purchase or rentals of supplies, materials, and equipment for confidential operations that cannot be done through regular procedures without compromising the information gathering activity concerned, payment of rewards to informers, and uncovering and preventing illegal activities that pose a clear and present danger to agency personnel or property or other facilities and resources under the agency protection, done in coordination with appropriate law enforcement agencies. So, saang mga activities po na ito enumerated sa joint circular ay gagastusan ng confidential funds ng office nyo, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, it varies. Not all the activities are the same for each day and each month. The liquidation of the confidential funds includes the enumeration of the use the Office of the Vice President. The confidential funds report, the joint memorandum circular requires the confidential fund report submission to the Office of the Vice President, the Senate President, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Commission on Audit. And we submitted the list of activities to these offices.
Thank you, Madam VP, Mr. Chair. I'll get to the liquidation end report also later. So just to clarify, Madam VP, since confidential funds refer to those agencies related to surveillance activities undertaken by civilian government agencies, ibig po bang sabihin na yung opisina ninyo will be gathering intelligence on certain subjects or entities in support sa inyong mandates o mga operasyon, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, that is correct. As an example, we did surveillance of complaints from constituents in Bulacan with regard to the selling of OVP assistance and the selling of tupad projects in Bulacan. And there was a surveillance operation that was run by the VP SPG for about a month. And we were able to apprehend the person, and we were able to successfully prosecute the case, and that person went to jail for ilang months?
6 months. Please.
For 6 months. So that is an example of the surveillance activities that is conducted by the VP SPG for the projects and activities of the Office of the Vice President. It was in Bulacan.
Salamat kaayo, Madam VP. I ask this because the National Intelligence Coordinating Agency was established to direct, coordinate, and integrate national intelligence activities. And this includes the collation of intelligence gathered from various sources. So we'd like more information as to the intelligence operations of the OVP. Sa aling mga sources magagather ng impormasyon yung OVP? Kukuha ba kayo ng intelligence mula sa ating mga existing intelligence services tulad ng NICA o tulad ng DND at PNP?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, no. Intelligence starts with the communities and the stakeholders, and then if there are complaints, and then it is built up through intelligence and surveillance services, and then a dossier or a report is started, and then it goes through levels through the Office of the Vice President and VP SPG. So we do not seek intelligence reports from other government agencies, but the intelligence reports starts from the ground in the communities that that are engaged by the Office of the Vice President.
Salamat kayo, Madam VP. Actually, I'll get to that process also in a bit. Dahil meron pong established na intelligence cycle at meron pong established na chain of command for the intelligence activities ng ating gobyerno at ng ating republika. And sa pagkaalam ko po, walang hiwalay na chain of command for Intel ang OVP. In fact, ang susunod kong tanong how can your honorable office, paano nyo po maa-assure yung mga miyembro nitong komite na yung collection ng intel ng inyong opisina hindi magre-resulta sa redundancy or duplication of effort?
There is no redundancy and duplication of effort because we have different mandates from the other government agencies.
Indeed, Mr. Chair, Madam VP, different mandates. And kanina, nilista nyo na po yung iba't ibang mandates ng OVP. Meron din pong klarong at complementary mandate ang intelligence community ng gobyerno sa ating bansa. And as I had been saying since last year's budget debates, we should leave intelligence to the experts, just as we leave education to the DepEd and we leave the mandates of the OVP to the OVP. Ano po ba yung magiging subjects ng OVP intelligence gathering operations? Ano yung mga intensyon at capabilities ng mga subjects na ito na kailangan ng OVP ng intelligence on these? At paano nitong mga subjects tinathreaten yung operations ng OVP?
Just to inform
Yes,
the
Mr. Chair.
good Deputy Minority, she has 2 minutes left. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Halos tamang-tama po. I just have 4 last questions after this one. At kung maubusan ng oras, I can put the last 2 or so questions on record para sa OVP and the good chair. Salamat, Mr. Chair.
Yes, the confidential funds is used for the safe, secure, and successful implementations of the projects, programs, and activities and engagements of the Office of the Vice President.
Sino po yung subjects? Ano yung intentions at capabilities ng mga subjects? At paano tinetrete ng mga subjects na to yung mga operasyon ng OVP?
This is for the successful, safe, secure, and successful implementation of the projects, programs, and activities and engagements of the Office of the Vice Presidents. If the question is the subjects on who are the sources, we cannot divulge who are the sources of intel information. We can just say that these are the stakeholders in the areas where there are engagements of the Office of the Vice President.
Hindi po sources, Madam VP, pero yung mga taong o grupong ginagatheran nyo ng opisina nyo ng intelligence.
Yes, those that are perceived to be threats in the successful, safe, and secure implementation of the PPAs.
Salamat, Madam VP. Mr. Chair, I'll need to follow up.
I'll give you my 5 minutes.
Oh, salamat, Mr. Chair. Salamat, Madam VP, Mr. Chair. I'll need to pursue that in greater detail than is being made available right now. Doon na lang po sa plenary. Madam VP, paano po ire-recruit ng OVP at ite-train yung mga intelligence operatives at agents na kakailanganin ng office para i-gather yung impormasyon para sa intelligence collection plan? Hanggang saang extent magre-rely ang OVP sa HUMINT at sa CGINT para sa information collection requirements ng office?
Again, with your permission,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
just want to acknowledge Senator Jingo Estrada, also Committee Vice Chair, as well as Senator Bato de la Rosa, also Committee Vice Chair. Good morning, Your Honors. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chair, Your Honor, the Vice Presidential Security and Protection Group coordinate with the Philippine National Police and the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Unfortunately, however, the commander of the VP SPG is not present here this morning.
Salamat kayo, Madam VP. So, dun sa sagot na ang VP SPG coordinates with the PNP and AFP, ibig po bang sabihin ang OVP ang magre-recruit and train na mga operatives at ahente, or yung PNP at AFP ang magte-train sa mga operatives at ahente ng OVP?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, unfortunately, I cannot answer the question. The commander of the VP SPG, we failed to include him in the list of the resource persons this morning.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Maybe we can, if you can put your questions in writing, we could submit it to the Office of the Vice President, and maybe, if possible, if they, because some of these matters are quite sensitive, so you can give them in executive session, or you can give them in a sealed envelope in writing. But at your pleasure, Madam Vice President. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, we can easily do that. We can ask them to submit to the Secretariat of this committee.
Salamat kayo, Madam VP, and salamat, Mr. Chair. I look forward to that information to be submitted in writing to the committee through the chair. And I'm glad na marinig tungkol sa coordination sa PNP at AFP dahil sila yung dalawa sa primary na halimbawa na may expertise sa Intel at may mandate sa Intel at gumaganap ng ganyang mga mandates in coordination with civilian agencies, including the OVP. And I look forward also, Mr. Chair, dun sa mga sagot tungkol sa HUMINT at CGINT na gagamitin either ng OVP or OVP in coordination with PNP and AFP. At Madam VP, paano i-collate ng OVP, isa-store, ika-catalog, isa-search through yung intelligence na kukolektahin? At anong IT infrastructure ang kakailanganin ng office nyo para sa purpose na ito?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, these are confidential matters which we cannot divulge in open session. Thank you.
So if possible, Madam VP, Mr. Chair, maisubmit din in writing to the committee through the chair?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, yes. Thank you.
Salamat kayo. And then, paano po ini-intend ng OVP na i-process tapos i-analyze yung impormasyon na kukolektahin para mag-produce ng actionable intelligence? Kakailangan nyo bang i-outsource yung parteng ito ng intelligence cycle, o magde-develop ba ang office ng capability in-house?
Um, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, we can ask the VP SPG to include that in their report. The VP SPG are composed of personnel from the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police, and some of them are trained in intelligence gathering and are part of intel units from the PNP and AFP. There are no civilian members in the VP SPG. Thank you.
With your
Thank you.
permission, I
Yes,
just want
Mr. Chair.
to acknowledge Senator Chis Escudero, the chair of the Senate Committee on Higher Education. Thank you. Morning, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam VP, paano po i-adjust ng OVP yung operations ninyo bilang resulta ng intelligence na makokolekta, ma-analyze at saka ma-disseminate?
We adjust according to the recommendations and the assessment of the VP SPG with regard to their appreciation of the intel information.
Salamat, Madam VP. And yung parte nga pong yun na nag-a-adjust ang VP SPG or rather, nag-a-adjust ang buong opisina dun sa rekomendasyon ng VP SPG. I presume, bunga na rin ang coordination nila dun sa PNP at AFP. Again, isang konkretong halimbawa na yung primary mandates para sa intelligence cycle, yung buong intelligence cycle, ay nakalodge dun sa intelligence agencies, including in the armed services ng ating gobyerno. At yung OVP, kahit through the VP SPG, ay pumapasok dun sa endpoint nung cycle na yon, paggamit ng intelligence. Dun nga sa sinabi ninyo na pag-adjust ayon sa recommendations ng VP SPG. Just returning again to one of my original points since last year na iwan natin ang intelligence sa experts dun sa intelligence agencies ng gobyerno in the same way na yung mga civilian agencies ng gobyerno, whether OVP itself or kahit DepEd, ay kumbaga shop nila yung kanilang mandates at yung kanilang expertise. Huling tanong na lang po, Madam VP, Mr. Chair, yung activities na binanggit ng VP kanina, hindi po ba part na rin ng regular law enforcement work na yung mga law enforcement agencies natin ay ginagawa na rin?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, we have different mandates from the other government agencies. So our intelligence, our confidential funds are used according to Joint Circular 2015-01. And whatever we gather from our confidential funds and surveillance, we share it with mainly the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police, as well as they share as well intelligence information that they gather, which are not included in our database. Thank you.
Thank you kaayo, Madam VP. I'm glad to hear na nag-share or mag-share ang OVP ng information na nakolekta ninyo sa AFP at PNP. Again, because it makes the point na sila talaga yung primary na may mandato talaga, not any other civilian agency. Sila talaga ang kasama sa may mandato sa intel work. Lastly, just to make of record also, continuing from yung pagbanggit ko sa 2015 joint resolution na what the confidential funds may only be used for, nakasulat din dun sa 2015 joint resolution na confidential and intelligence funds cannot be used for salaries, wages, overtime, additional compensation, allowance, or other fringe benefits of officials and employees who are employed by the government in whatever capacity or elected officials except when authorized by law. Confi and Intel funds cannot be used for representation, consultancy fees, or entertainment expenses, or construction or acquisition of buildings or housing structures. So, dagang salamat, Madam VP. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. I'll pursue in plenary periods of interpellation and amendments. One of my main subjects of debate with the OVP na yung Confi and Intel funds mas properly lodged talaga dun sa ibang line items ng opisina mismo o sa mga intelligence agencies talaga ng ating gobyerno na ginagawa itong mga mandates nito even for the civilian agencies and offices and departments like the OVP. Salamat, Mr.
Thank you very
Chair.
much,
At
Deputy
salamat
Minority
kay
Leader
Minority Leader sa
and
additional
Vice
comments.
Chair Risa,
Mr.
Senator Risa.
Chair.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, Vice President.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, the Office of the Vice President can only propose the use of confidential funds based on Joint Circular 2015-01, but we leave it to the decision and discretion of the members of Congress who has the power of the purse to decide whether to grant confidential funds to our office. We can only propose, but we are not insisting. We can live without confidential funds. But of course, our work will be much easier if we have the flexibility of confidential funds in monitoring the safe, secure, and successful implementations of the programs, projects, and activities of the Office of the Vice President. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you, Vice President. Yes,
yes, thank you,
Senator.
Kayo, to Madam VP and to Mr. Chair. And for sure, Congress will continue to exercise that power of the purse, both para suportahan yung mandates ng OVP, lalo na sa mga line item programs, activities, and projects, and also properly allocate yung Confi and Intel funds, lalo na sa mga Intel agencies ng gobyerno. Salamat, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Senator Risa. Does Congress still have the power of the purse? I'm not so sure, but anyway, that's a separate debate. We'll ask now the Minority Leader, sir, since you've given your 5 minutes to Senator Risa. You have 5 minutes, Honorable Minority Leader, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair,
Sige, I think Senator Bato wants to give me his time.
Senator Bato? Yeah.
just short interjection, Mr. Chair.
With the permission of
The permission of
Minority
Minority Leader.
Anytime.
If you want to prove if the Congress has the power of the purse, you better ask Senator Bongo. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Not anymore.
It's an inside joke, I think, Your Honors. Okay, Minority Leader, you have the floor, sir.
Anyway, magandang umaga po. Magandang umaga, Madam Vice President, and to the entire Office of the Vice President. And to COA. COA is also here. Well, the Vice President gave us her manifestation that the OVP can live without the confidential funds, no, to the tune of 500 million pesos. But then the OVP included it in the proposal submitted to the DBM. Siguro ang tanong ko, which I always ask, no, in fairness to the DOLE, tinanong ko sila when they have a program, sabi ko, what would be the legal basis for your agency in asking for that funding? So I will ask the OVP the same question. When you looked at the Constitution and any other law, I don't know if there is a law mentioning a mandate or a role for the OVP. So what legal basis led us to, in the first place, include it in our proposed budget, that 500 million pesos confidential fund?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, the basis for our request for confidential funds is the Joint Circular 2015-01, wherein Section 3.7 defines the confidential fund, refers to the lump sum amount provided as such in the GAA for NGAs, in appropriation ordinances for LGUs, and in the COBs for GOCCs for their confidential expenses. It is not, the law does not enumerate the NGAs that can request or cannot request for confidential funds.
Actually, that circular joint it's a joint agency circular, actually governs the use of the confidential fund. So practically, it's about the use. So the only basis now for the grant of confidential fund would be either a specific law or it's because of the GAA. Ganun po ba yun, Madam President? Madam Vice President?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, the fact that there is a joint circular 2015 na -1 for the use, it presumes and assumes that national government agencies are allowed or can request confidential funds. Because otherwise, there will not be a joint circular for the use if national government agencies cannot request for confidential funds.
And then, if I heard you correctly, the Office of the Vice President has requested, because as you interpret the Joint Memorandum Circular, the NGA can request. You have requested because it will now supplement or complement your PAPs, and you can safely implement your PAPs. Is that the general reasoning, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, that is for the safe, secure, and successful implementation of PPAs, programs, projects, and activities and engagements of the Office of the Vice President, including the crafting of policy recommendations in my capacity as co-vice chair of the NTF LCAC. I mainly rely on the Office of the Vice President with regard to my work in the NTF LCAC.
Yung NTF LCAC, ma'am, does not have its own access to intelligence or its own experts or consultants already providing advice to the NTF LCAC members for policy?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, I cannot answer for NTF LCAC, but I, as a co-vice chair, mainly rely on the resources of the Office of the Vice President when I do my work for the NTF LCAC and when we do our discussions and recommendations in the NTF LCAC.
You have a personnel complement of 354, and I think in your MOE you can also hire consultants. Hindi po ba pwedeng idaan sa more normal budget items po ang if that is what we need, inputs on possible policies that we can come up with, or professional or expert advice, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, mainly the confidential funds is used under Section 4.8, the enumeration in Section 4.8, Joint Circular 2015-01. These are very specific and this cannot be found in other uses or line items in the budget. Thank you.
Kaya nga, ang confidential funds kasi is you buy information eh. If you need information for policy, you do not buy information. You have consultants to properly and professionally give us their opinions on certain policy questions, Mr. Chairman. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think confidential funds should be mixed with the need to come up with policies, Mr. Chairman. But at any rate, that's my opinion, and the Vice President, I think, already expressed her opinion. Ma'am, okay. So, we formed a congressional oversight committee on the use of confidential and intelligence funds. Did the Vice President, Office of the Vice President, comply by submitting at least, hindi pa naman tapos ng 2023, yung 2022, whatever funds were charged to confidential funds, did you comply by submitting parang the necessary documents required by the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee?
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, we were able to comply with the repertorial requirements of the Joint Circular 2015-01. We were able to submit to the Office of the Senate President, the Office of the President, the Office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Commission on Audit.
Thank you for that, ma'am. Ano, so, I'm talking about year 2022, ano, kasi I think the boxes are already in the office of the Senate President and we're about to convene our committee to go over the expenses. It's good that you complied for the year 2022. My only problem is it's a legal question. For the year 2022, there was no line item for confidential funds or expenses for the OVP. And yet you're telling us now that the OVP liquidated a certain amount as confidential funds for the year 2022. And then, and this may be connected with the information we got that the Office of the President charged to contingent fund 2022 and transferred to the Office of the Vice President 221,424,000 pesos. Is this a correct factual statement, Madam Vice President?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, I cannot answer to the amount. The amount is correct. Yes, the amount is correct, and that is correct. We requested confidential funds to the Office of the President as early as August 2022, and we were only granted the confidential funds on December 2022.
Thank you for that very frank and clear answer from the Vice President. However, ibalik ako sa legal question ko. That is practically an augmentation, di ba? Na we added something to the tune of I think of the 221 million, the OVP liquidated 125 million as confidential funds. And then parang na-augment for year 2022 kasi ito eh. There was no item in the OVP budget for confidential expense in year 2022. So it's not even 1 peso, it's nothing, it's zero, and then it's not even mentioned in the line item budgeting for the OVP. And yet, at year's end, calendar year 2022, we will now have an entry of 125 million pesos charged to a line which did not exist at the very beginning. So how do we justify or reason out this situation, Madam Vice President?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, we requested it from the Office of the President, and it was granted through the Department of Budget and Management. I think the Department of Budget and Management can better answer the question of the transfer of funds from their source to the Office of the Vice President. However, but nevertheless, we complied with the repertorial requirements of the use of the funds as confidential funds.
Sige po. So, I'm back to my original statement. I'm just actually raising a legal question kasi I know budgeting is quite a complicated field of legislation. Maraming technical terms, maraming mga mechanics, yun na. Pero ang akala ko sa budgeting 101, kailangan may bahay. Tawag nila dyan, bahay. If you intend to increase or to put something, dapat may bahay, may tagasalo siya. So, and in this particular case for calendar year 2022, yun lang po napansin namin na wala. Opo. Ngayon, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. Okay. So I thank the chairman.
May we ask the minority leader to wrap up
Yes.
perhaps with this last question, if possible?
Can it be a last set of questions? Mr.
Okay,
Chairman?
okay, okay, go ahead.
We have been informed that the OVP proposed 5.7 billion pesos as their budget and was given by the DBM for the 2024 NEP 2.38 billion pesos. Is that correct, Mr. President?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, the question will be answered by Mr. Kelvin Teñido, the Chief Budget Officer of the Office of the Vice President.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. We propose a total of 5.7 billion to DBM, and under NEP, we have a recommended budget of 2.38 billion, sir.
Again, what did you recommend? How much? 5.7?
The proposal to DBM was 5.7 billion, sir.
So, kaya nga, in your planning, you wanted to ask 5.7 billion for the calendar year 2024 as your budget, but you were given only 2.38 billion. Ano po ang matatamaan sa mga plano ninyo na hindi na fund nitong NEP?
Significant portion of the portion of the proposed budget was lodged under the capital outlay for the land acquisition for the permanent office of the OVP, sir.
How much?
That is 2 billion, sir.
So, sa lupa pa lamang, okay, sa proposed site, sa proposed project of a permanent OVP building, lupa pa lamang po ito, 2 billion pesos. Tama po ba, Mr. Tenor?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
2 billion. Last year, for this year yata, 2023, I think we appropriated 10 million pesos for down payment. Nagamit po ba yun?
That's correct, sir. We have 10 million under FY 2023 GA for the OVP, but as of to date, we are still negotiating the cost of the property.
And so that means we already have a target property. So may we know where is the target property?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, Undersecretary Lopez will answer the question.
Yes, Your Honor. Initially, thank you, Vice President. Initially, one of the identified areas was the Coconut Palace, no? The area of the Coconut Palace. It is still undergoing negotiations, but the Office of the Vice President is also considering other locations, Your Honor.
So wala pang nabayaran ng down payment in effect. Okay. So and our NEP approved budget is 28 million pesos more than our 2023 GAA.
Talking to BCDA. They're also talking to BCDA. Baka
Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, Mr. Kelvin Teñido, the Chief Budget
Calvin.
Officer, will answer.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
I noticed the decrease in professional services. Malaki, 100 million. What happened there?
Mr. Chair, initially, we have projected number of contract of service for the 2023 since the change of administration from 2022. But now we have made a request for PS positions so as not to incur or engage a COSP personnel, sir.
So yung pagbaba ng professional services, umakyat naman sa PS?
Yes, sir, supposedly, but still under review of the DBM.
Kasi yung bottom line budget niyo is up by 28 million. Siguro, Mr. Chairman, that just to be fair to the others, ito last na lang question siguro sa, you have a personal complement of 354. This does not include the security personnel for the Vice President. Is that correct? Numbering 400 plus ba? Is that correct? Sa news reports na lang po namin nakukuha, how much and how many are the security personnel for the Vice President?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, yes, the Office of the Vice President, approximately 300 personnel does not include the Vice President Security and Protection Group. The Vice President and Security Protection Group personnel are personnel coming from the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police.
anong tawag mo doon? Parang composite pala siya. Composite. So the budget necessary for the salaries of our Vice President Security would be found in two agencies, the AFP and the PNP.
That is
Tama po
correct.
ba yun?
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, yes, that is correct.
Siguro when they are before us, doon na lang kami magtatanong siguro sa budget nila on the security complement for our Vice President. But at any rate, I have seen the Vice President in action, Mr. Chairman, in the field. Although she may have, let's say, lots of security details, she is very approachable. The people can approach her. Hindi naman kami sinushu away. I mean, I mean, just to keep her safe, but she's very approachable. Nakita ko siya sa palarong pambansa. And then personally andun ako, and sa iba sa footages na we can see that the people are not really parang turned off by the presence of overbearing security. Siguro pero sa budget lang po kami nakatingin because kailangan maging frugal din po tayo at saka kailangan na tayo ngayon, value for money na ngayong panahon. So thank you for the time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the responses from the Vice President and the Office of the Vice President. And
Thank you.
siguro yung hindi natin na-cover doon na lang sa plenary po, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator
Thank you.
Minority Leader,
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pimpel. Yes, please.
Yes, we are okay to answer questions from all the members.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
If in case they still want to ask.
There are a few left.
questions.
There's Senator Revilla, then there's Senator Tolentino, Senator Estrada, Senator De La Rosa. Just four more, ma'am. Would you like to take a break for a health break, for instance, before we proceed? Here we will.
Yes, may we request a 10-minute break? Thank you.
Certainly, ma'am. Thank you. To order once more, Your Honors. Again, good morning, Madam Vice President, and to our colleagues. Next is this is the order of questioning, and of course, we'd like to remind that we also have the Department of Education following, and of course, session at 4 o'clock, Your Honor. So let's be a little mindful of that. So we have Senator Revilla, Vice Chair Sen Tolentino, Vice Chair Jingo Estrada, Vice Chair De La Rosa, and Vice Chair Villar. Senator Bong, your turn. You have 10 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Angara, to our guests, sa aking idol na pinakamagaling na Vice Presidente ng Pilipinas, my very good friend, Vice President Inday Sara Duterte. Well, traditionally, with due respect and courtesy to the second highest leader of our country, when the budget of the Office of the Vice President is tackled here in the committee, the deliberations are terminated after a few pleasantries. Ito po ang nakakagawian natin base sa tradisyon na pagkilala at pagbibigay respeto sa sino mang umuupo na Vice Presidente. Pero bago po tayo tumalima sa tradisyong ito, nais ko po munang bigyang pugay at papuri ang lahat ng naisasakatuparang pangako ng Office of the Vice President. And in the first 100 days alone of the OVP under the stewardship of our very able, very steadfast and very determined Vice President Sara Duterte, hundreds of thousands of lives have been touched, changed, and inspired. With more than 100% accomplishment rating for the good governance program of the Office of the Vice President, there is nothing more to debate about. Walang dudang nasa mabuting kamay ang Office of the Vice President. At sumasang-ayon dyan ang 108.33% na satisfaction rating nito sa ilalim ng parehong programa. Madam President, katuwang niyo po kami sa inyong mithiin at advokasiyang itawid ang estado at serbisyo sa ating mga kababayan, anumang hirap, anumang layo. Kasama niyo kaming sasagwan, anumang taas ng alon, sa haba man ng dagat nating tatawirin. Mr. Chair, alam ko pong marami pa tayong itatakal this morning. Meron pa tayong Committee on Education. In view of tradition, I hereby express my support to the OVP and move for the approval of its budget for 2024 with the approval of the body. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, there are 4 more senators who are listed, so I don't know. Maybe we should, before we tackle that motion, we should ask them if they wish to answer questions, because then the motion would not be proper. So, with the permission of Vice Chair Senator Tolentino, Vice Chair Senator Jinggoy, Vice Chair Bato de la Rosa, and Vice Chair Senator Cynthia, are you going to ask questions? No questions for Senator Cynthia. How about Vice Chair Francis? Vice Chair Francis, did you have questions?
I have no questions.
Okay. Vice Chair Jinggoy and Vice Chair Bato.
Move for the
Mr. Chair.
motion.
Vice Chair Jinggoy, yes.
First of all, I would like to associate myself with the manifestation of my good friend here, Senator Bong Revilla, and I'm here to manifest also my full support to the budget of the Office of the Vice President, and I'm in support of the worthwhile plans and programs of the Office of the Vice President. And I'm also here to stare at the Vice President because she's so beautiful, Mr. Chair. And I would like to move. If there are no other questions, I would like to move for the termination of the budget of the Office of the Vice President.
Just for legality and technicality, just to be follow the correct procedure, Senator Bato, because you are listed to ask questions. But of the 4, the 3 have already expressed their wish that to terminate the hearing. So, which side of the fence are you on, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alam mo naman yan, Mr. Chairman. But I just would like to manifest my full support to the budget of the Office of the Vice President. Lalong-lalo na ngayon, Mr. Chairman, that the Vice President is designated as the co-Vice Chairman of, Ma'am, Vice Chairman o Chairman ng NTF-LCAC? Vice.
Vice Chair, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, it's Vice Chair
Vice
because
Chair.
the Chair is the President.
Yes, the Vice Chair of NTF-LCAC, the more
Co-Vice
that
Chair.
she really needs our support. So with that, since the motion was placed on the table by Senator Bong Revilla, if the Senator Bong Revilla or Senator Jigo Estrada, yung motion kanina,
Both of them have made the
Both of
motion.
them,
Yes, Your Honor.
made the motion,
Yeah.
maybe I can make the
You can
second-
you can second the
second,
motion.
Mr. Chairman, for
Okay.
the adoption
Yeah.
of the proposed budget.
Well, we thank our colleagues then because you've, of course, we have the DepEd budget. So salamat sa inyo, Your Honors. Thank you to Senator Bong, Senator Jinggoy for making that motion. And thank you to Vice Chairs Tolentino, Villar, De La Rosa, and Estrada for yielding the floor. Thank you. Thank you to the Vice President and the OVP for your presentation and answering the questions very patiently and thoroughly today. And of course, I join my colleagues in commending the Office of the Vice President for the good work it has been doing, and I'm sure it will continue to do. Maraming salamat po, and maybe you can have your lunch, and then we will, with your permission, Madam Vice President, we'll resume at 12 for the DepEd to be chaired by Senator Pia. Is that enough time for you, ma'am?
We will defer to the decision of Senator Cayetano.
So, Senator Jinggoy will entertain you in the meantime while he's waiting for the catering, Madam Vice President. But I don't think Senator P is here yet because I think the schedule was 12 o'clock. So anyway, we'll suspend the hearing of the budget briefing of the Office of the Vice President. Salamat po, Madam Vice President, for coming patiently and answer the questions.
Thank you.
We appreciate your presence here very much. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Mr. Chair.
Salamat po. Thank you to the office also. Salamat po.